Hey there, welcome to episode 15 of the Boob Report podcast, powered by Helix Interactive. Today, I'm hanging out with Diane Smard, Cope founder, speaker, and aerospace executive. Oh yeah, you heard that right. This is going to be very cool. So let's get started. All right. We are just so excited to have Diane join us today. And I am just going to jump right in here because we got a lot to talk about, all things mental today. Hi, Diane. Welcome.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me.
I really appreciate it. Well, why don't we start out with you just talking about, as much as you want about your journey and how you got to where you are starting that amazing program.
Thank you so much. So I wear many hats. I actually have a passion for small business and working with startup companies, which is what I've done the majority of my career. I actually have a journalism degree, though, which comes into play here in a little bit. Right now, I am executive vice president and on the board of directors of a company called BYE Aerospace here in the Denver area. And we're developing the first FAA, what's called FAR Part 23 certified all-electric airplane. And this is technology that I was very interested, even though I am not a pilot myself, very interested in, because it is, of course, so disruptive and revolutionary. And so I've been here 13 years. And I have, over the course of my career, taken that journalism degree and applied it to a lot of marketing, communications, PR, business writing, a lot of media, journalism, relations, and all the other special projects that nobody else wants to do is typically where I end up. But this has been my focus here for the last few years. But right now, I'm also since I was diagnosed with late stage 3 breast cancer in 2015, and have since completed treatment and all of my hormonal therapy and everything. I have, because of my experience being so emotional for me, it was very physically challenging, as it is also for all of us, certainly, but particularly emotionally challenging for me. I did a lot of introspection because I had so much downtime, and for someone like me that has so much going on, it allowed me the opportunity to capture a lot of what I was feeling in a journal. And I approached my oncologist near the end of chemotherapy, which was the first in my chemotherapy and then surgery and radiation treatment plan and I was just so depressed, quite honestly, about how hard chemo was and why I couldn't just deal with it. And I was such a strong, independent woman. Like I said, have a real interest in business, but I couldn't figure out how to get good at cancer. And it was really challenging me. So a conversation I had with her, because I asked her for a recommendation or referral to, I said, a therapist who understands what it's like for a type A business executive like me to have to deal with breast cancer and not really be able to figure out how to get good at it. And she lectured me a little bit and said, I wish I knew of someone. I don't know of anybody that specializes. And I went off on her and I said, we have all these therapists that deal with important emotional issues, family issues. I said, we even have sports psychologists. Why don't we have mental health practitioners focusing on the mental health aspects of cancer? And she said, well, I know they exist. I just don't know who they are, but be sure to check out our cancer support group, breast cancer support group. And I said something that it just came to my mind, because that's what happens, right, when you're going through this.
Oh, yeah.
I said, well, making a quilt block isn't going to make me feel better. And that was my unfair, stereotypical impression of support groups. You do art projects. And so jump ahead, and that actually, I started just kicking over rocks because I had been journaling about and capturing just how much I was discovering about myself because of this breast cancer experience. And it led me to eventually found a program at the University of Denver called at the Graduate School of Professional Psychology. And again, these are clinical psychologists that they're training. And we ended up founding a specialty called the Center for Oncology Psychology Excellence, or COPE. And we launched it in 2016. So within a year, actually a few months of me finishing treatment, we launched this specialty, and it's a 12 credit specialty. And we're training, we at the time we're the first in the country at the graduate level to offer this type of training. Many psychologists who are behavioral health psychologists and work with cancer patients, we're getting their training at the postdoc level. And so COPE is still in existence today. There's a clinical element to it. So the COPE Clinic, as it's called. And then since then, I've published a book based on my journal that I kept, that is a memoir style book about really how this breast cancer experience helped me really discover myself over again at age 50, how it changed my life, how I did a lot of forgiving and purging, and how I now have such a different approach to life because I'm so grateful, as I always say, to have been chosen to live.
Well, I think that's amazing, and truly amazing that you started that while you were going through treatment. You saw a problem and you solved it basically in a year of, trying to get more mental health accessibility for people. And I want to applaud you for that, because I know that's something that's not talked about a lot. And it's incredibly frustrating for people like myself, because I know I still to this day struggle with the anxiety and depression, which I had before I was diagnosed with cancer, but was really amplified once I got that diagnosis.
Yes. Certainly not uncommon, absolutely. And I love the word that you just used, amplified, because if anyone now asks me about what the experience with cancer was like, is that everything is amplified. Your emotions, your misery, everything is just, it's on your mind all the time. That's all you think about. It's all I thought about anyway. And so like so many are, I think, that are impactful in business and life, need to feel needed and relevant. I just felt a need to do something. I called it my life raft. I just felt a need to start something, to found something in this case. And I was just so shocked that, like I said, my oncologist is like, oh, yeah, I have so many survivors actually who are so close to having mental nervous breakdowns because of the fear of recurrence. So as I always say, I coined the phrase, cancer is never invited and cancer never leaves, because there is the fear of recurrence. There is the fact that we're, in some cases, going back and being retested, perhaps for the rest of our lives, depending on your situation. And the other thing that I learned that I'm so passionate about is the way our healthcare system works. It's convenient to try to commoditize all of this and put us all into like, okay, well, they're the breast cancer survivors. They have unique needs. And the point is, we're all individuals, right? And our past traumas, our past fears, our past health experiences are going to impact how we go through this experience. And so you can take two women in my case, compare me to someone who, I have a weak stomach, and so chemo was really hard for me. I met women who were like, oh God, chemo was super easy. It was radiation that, killed me. It was so hard. And the point is you stop and you realize the system is set up to treat us all the same way. Here's the same pills. For liability reasons, we treat everybody the same way. There just isn't a lot of margin for individuality in this. And there's talk about patient-focused care. We need so much more of that. And the brain is part of the body. This impacts your psyche, your mental state. Cancer patients are diagnosed with PTSD. It happens. It's a thing.
Oh,
so
yeah.
There's such a need.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. I was very lucky in the fact, and I've said this on other episodes of the podcast, that the surgeon that was doing my reconstructive surgery, she set me up with a physical therapist before I even had the implants, replacement put in.
Sure.
And I was like, I just thought that was normal because that's what she did. And it amazes me how many women are like, really? You saw a physical therapist? What was that for?
I know. Yeah.
And it helped me so much.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, Diane, my physical therapist was the one that realized you need to go into counseling.
Yep.
You need to go talk to somebody because you're not healing like you should be healing, because you've never accepted the fact that you had cancer.
Yes. There's so many outcomes from this experience that none of us would expect. And so much I've realized now, and honestly, I have not, even though I was wanting to see a therapist at the time I needed it in my treatment experience. I never got around to it because then I started solving this problem, and then I wrote this book. And again, not to pitch my book per se, but it was the process of writing my book, which is a year in the life. It starts the day I was diagnosed and goes on for a whole year. And it very intimately talks about the good, the bad, and the raw, and how this impacted me. But it was my life raft. It really was my self-therapy, was going through and reliving this experience, and the trauma and the pain and the tears, um, a second time. And that's what helped me heal. And writing and journaling is a tool for that therapists often recommend if you express yourself well. And I happen to be one of those people that does that. I learned so much about it myself. And then other gifts. The title of my book is The Unlikely Gift of Breast Cancer, which is crazy, right? And
Right.
but it really was. I discovered so much about myself, about my upbringing. I discovered that my father, who was served in the Korean War, and what I was daddy's little girl till the age of 5, and then his PTSD, post-war experience PTSD, kicked in 15 years after he was in the Korean War. We just didn't know it at the time. It used to be called, well, daddy's depressed, and he spent 6 months in the psych ward of the Veterans Hospital in Lincoln, Nebraska. And the cover story was that he was depressed. And so my dad was never the same after that. He didn't have time for me. It was just so hard. And
Yeah.
because this breast cancer experience allowed me the opportunity to talk to a cousin whose father is himself a counselor. This is the first time I made the connection that maybe dad had what we call today PTSD. And then I forgave him, and all the times he didn't show up for me. And it was like, I get it. But I wouldn't have had that realization had I not gone through this experience.
Exactly. And I think that we've got a long way to go as
Yeah.
a society to recognize and accept the fact that we need specific mental health care,
Yeah.
for people. You can't put a Band-Aid on it.
Right.
And there's some people that they can work through their trauma or, the depression or anxiety by doing what you did, maybe writing a book or doing a
Yeah.
journal, or,
Yeah.
maybe they start hiking. But to have those services available so that they know it's there and that they can, take advantage of them when they need them, I think would be a huge step forward for all of us.
Absolutely. And I am, again, with my limited time, because I still have a full-time job. Everybody wants an electric airplane. And so
My husband included.
I know. I'm trying to now focus on helping those organizations, those individuals that have recognized this need. And again, there's the COPE Clinic on the University of Denver campus. They also do telehealth services, but there's just so much need. And so one of the organizations here locally in Colorado that I've gotten involved with is called the Ray of Hope Colorado Cancer Foundation.
Right.
And this is a grant giving organization that was founded with the purpose, the intent of providing grants to those low-income Coloradoans who are facing a cancer diagnosis and are having trouble paying for groceries, paying for their rent or their mortgage because they have to now pay for cancer treatment. And so they provide financial grants.
Mm-hmm.
They approached me, the foundation approached me a year ago about, they wanted to start a pilot program for mental health therapy, providing grants for Coloradoans recently diagnosed to see a therapist for individualized mental health counseling, and that they would provide the grants for that to cover the cost. And so, and it was based on sort of my messaging with just bringing more attention to this. And I was very honored and flattered. And so they will be officially launching that pilot program after the first of the year in 2022.
2022.
And you can go to their, I think it's Ray of Hope Colorado Cancer Foundation. You can go to their website, and it's one of the 2 grant programs that they're offering. And so they will start with the pilot, which is very, very smart, and then continue to try to grow the program. But you're right, there's the need and the reaction and the response they've already gotten. There's so many of us and those patients that are looking for this type of health. And it's just not part of the traditional healthcare treatment protocol, as I call it. And so
Right.
there are other tools available, and I'm learning more and more about those. I do believe that we have to be our own advocates uh, in the mental health aspect of this process of healing.
I absolutely agree with you. And I think that, and we'll have information for the Ray of Hope Foundation. We'll have information on my website in the show notes for this episode for everyone to check that out. And we did, Diane and I actually talked about this beforehand. Right now, we've launched in Colorado, the Boob Report has, we are growing nationwide. So we will have more access to services that are available in different states, and we'll start adding that to the website. That is our goal, is to be nationwide. So, give us time. I promise we will have some more information for your specific state as we go forward. But speaking of other, things that are available to people, you and I talked about something before we came on to record. It was the patient advisor.
Yes.
Program that you were involved in, and I didn't take good enough notes. So let's talk about that, because that just really tweaked my interest.
Certainly. So I believe, even though I believe that individualized mental health therapy is best, we don't have the resources. I just heard a startling statistic that out of the 18 million cancer cases, and I don't know what the frame is for that, there's 18 million people with cancer in this case, and there's 2,000 mental health practitioners that are educated to work with cancer patients. I mean, we just don't have enough resources, right? And so that's why COPE is intended to start to help address that. And by the way, I've been approached by other organizations. My alma mater, University of Nebraska at Kearney, wants to offer some type of this training, because so many on the traditional healthcare side would like to understand more about how to recognize certain behaviors, because they know that if you're not in good mental health, your chances of succeeding and having a full recovery, or at least staying on your anti-cancer meds or whatever, is more likely if you're in a better state of mind. So one of the tools then that I'm working with right now is a company called Blue Note Therapeutics, and they have an application. They call it digital therapy. It's an app called Attune, Attune.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an app that's in clinical studies right now. It's not approved by the FDA. We sure hope it will be eventually. But this is intended, it's an app for your phone that's intended to help newly diagnosed cancer patients go through exercises, relaxation exercises, to help relieve or lower the level of distress that you have dealing with such a traumatic event in your life. And so I'm a patient advisor for Blue Note, and they are developing, eventually I'm sure they will develop other types of apps or tools for different stages and situations with cancer. But it really is, they're combining artificial intelligence with relaxation therapies and techniques that do work. And I have gone through parts of it, and it put me right to sleep, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
It works. And so
Nice.
very effective. But I just think that, and the beauty in all of this is, I always say the Holy Grail is that it's prescription based. And so right now, for in my case, if I had found a mental health practitioner, a therapist, and gone and visited with him or her when I was going through the highest traumas of my experience, most of them don't take health insurance for a variety of reasons, one of which is just it's cost prohibitive. They would have to increase their fees, their charges, by so much, because there's so much bureaucracy that goes into offering or taking health insurance, I should say. So many of them don't. And so, but with this Attune app, it's prescription based. And so doctors can prescribe therapy sessions. And I think because we are so limited in our resources, that we have to look to all of these types of options to be able to get some tools, relaxation tools, to help those that are so traumatized by this experience. And again, the impact is a whole nother podcast topic. I know you know this, Michelle, but the impact that COVID and the pandemic has had on the treatment of cancers, because of the delay now in some of those that may have known or suspected something was wrong, did not get in to get their diagnoses. And then it can advance a stage or two or more when you delay that, because there were such and continues to be such concern about the pandemic. So
Yeah.
again, it is cancer was concerning enough before, but this is really seems to have complicated things that much more.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. I think it just flipped everything over on its head,
Yeah.
the pandemic and everything through 2020 and 2021. I think we're
Yes.
still trying to crawl out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was nervous. I mean, I hit my 5-year mark in September of 2021, but I still, when I go back and see my oncologist, I'm fingers crossed. Oh God, please don't find anything. Um, but during the pandemic, I was really scared, and
Yeah.
I was because I couldn't get in to see them for my regular yearly checkup. And then
Sure.
the more I started thinking about it, well, I'm feeling okay. I don't want to jump in front of somebody else that needs to get in there first
Yeah.
because they're further along in their diagnosis or what have you. But yeah, the last 2 years I think have just really brought a light, which I'm hoping will move us in the right direction to
Sure.
really reevaluate healthcare, mental health care, everything and how we approach things and how we treat people.
Thank you. And it certainly needs to. And if I as you and I were discussing before we started to record, I often have choices in my day of where I expend my energy and resources, and I want to be impactful and helpful, but there's just so much that's needed, and you're so wonderful because you're going to be, I think, a funnel, a filter to help provide these wonderful resources, and just keeping all of those up to date and current is a labor of love, totally.
Yeah.
But I tend to see an even bigger picture of, I would love to see, I would say the ultimate thing for me someday would be so that when you receive your diagnosis, and right now they do distress screening
Mm-hmm.
for anxiety, which is required. However, that's kind of where they leave it. And so if there is a high distress level with someone who has had a distress screening for cancer, they say, well, the only tools that we can offer you is, again, a support group, or we can make some recommendations, but they're just so limited. They have to test for it, but then there's not a lot of solutions or alternatives. I would love to see that along with it. And you mentioned physical therapy, lymphedema massage, all of that, nutrition, and to help you adjust to your new life after cancer treatment is over. But this experience has impacted your mind and your body in so many ways that you don't even know of yet.
Right.
And that we do address the mental health aspect, the level of trauma that you are in now. What's your support network? Because as we all know who've been through this, the cards, the letters, the gifts, the prayers, the texts, the this, the that, when you wrap up treatment, it's just people, I wouldn't say they forget about you. They just, assumption, at least for me, was like, oh, she's done, she's cured, she's healed, and all those things. And in some cases, that's where the true trauma really starts.
Right.
Studies have shown this. This PTSD, cancer caused by cancer, often seems to peak about 6 months after formal treatment ends. Because here we are now dealing with life after cancer. In some cases, our hair is growing back. We've put on weight, we've lost weight. My hands didn't function the way I had. Lymph nodes removed from my armpit. I wasn't the same, and I knew I should be happy, but I couldn't get it going. And that was, like I said, that was when I wrote my book, thankfully, because that pulled me out of my rut. But
Right.
PTSD seems to peak starting at about 6 months post-treatment, and can last for another 4 years, and in some cases for a lifetime. It depends. I mean, we're all different, right? We go back to that individualness of this experience. And so I would love to see, like I said, the mental health, your distress level, your trauma level, be a part of the concern of this whole process of treating cancer. And it's just not on the level that it should be yet. We have a long way to go.
Right. Oh yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think that, and I say this a lot, every woman's journey is different. We don't experience things the same way.
No.
I didn't have to do chemo or radiation. I was
Right.
very blessed with that. But that just, I'll use the word again, amplified my survivor's guilt,
Oh,
where,
sure.
I was still going through pain 6 to 8 months later.
Right.
And I was like, why are you being such a baby? Why are you
Yeah.
doing this? You didn't have as hard of a time as this other woman, and that wasn't fair to me and my mental aspect, because my journey was different,
Yep.
you know. So, and I think that a lot of, women, strong women especially, they reach a point and they're like, okay, I'm done, treatment's over, that's it, I should be fine, I need to move forward, this was a blip, this was a speed bump, and I need to move forward. And
Yeah.
that's just not the way it works.
No, no,
you
it's
know
not. And to kind of reverse what you're saying, excuse me, it's interesting. So I was staged as a late stage 3 because I didn't know what to do with me because my 3 breast tumors were so small, yet it had spread to my lymph nodes. So
Mhm.
they gave me the nuclear bomb treatment. And in the end, they likely would not have had to do that, but they didn't want to biopsy anymore because they were afraid. They knew it was in my armpit, that it would
Mhm.
metastasize throughout the rest of my body. And so because my tumors were so small, my cancer was non-aggressive grade that was
Mhm.
behaving aggressively. So they didn't know what to do with me. And so I don't fit the parameters, which is the theme of my book. It's the theme of my life. What am I doing in aerospace? I mean, it's just who I am. And so I finally, thanks to cancer, began to celebrate that. But to kind of get back, I was a candidate for lumpectomy.
Mhm.
It was an option to have it was all contained on my left side, but I could have had a single or a double mastectomy. It wasn't necessary. Well, necessary. It wasn't going to help me any. It wasn't going to help reduce the recurrence possibilities. And so they said you could do lumpectomy. You'll be a little lopsided, but you won't have to go through all of that
Mhm.
and reconstructive surgery on top of that. And I chose lumpectomy, and it was my guilt because they said it was going to take me a whole nother year and 3 reconstructive surgeries, and I'd heard such horror stories from women who had um, mastectomy, and that was the worst part. And I knew that emotionally I didn't have it left in me, and so
Mhm.
I feel like I took the easy way out. It was the right decision for me, um, and I'm glad I'm thankful I did it now because I know myself a lot better. But I feel worse for those women who are now impacted for a lifetime because of an unfortunate, there's so much infection and things that happen with these reconstructive surgeries, and I didn't have that.
Yeah.
And my heart just goes out to them because that sticks with you too, let alone the cold cancer part. So,
Yeah.
like you said, Michelle, this is such a unique experience, but yet we all get lumped in the same box.
We do. We do. And we have covered so much today. Needless to say, we will be having you come back so we can talk more
Of
about
course,
this. I mean, we could talk for hours with,
we could.
several bottles of wine about this.
Oh yeah, those are the
It's
best.
yeah, yeah. So I just want to thank you so much for doing this, and we'll figure out another time because I definitely want to have you back and learn more about the app for
Yeah,
sure.
sure. Okay.
And and then just we'll have information again on my website for this episode for in the show notes that you guys can go check out. We'll have links and things like that available, and also a link for Diane's book. I highly recommend it. It is amazing. And just a quick side note, I have to apologize. Her and I were joking. Our allergies are just killing us right now. So I'm attempting to sound like Demi Moore or Taya Leone. I don't know. I've just got a cracky voice going, but I appreciate you being on the show today, Diane. I'm so excited for our relationship going forward. There's going to be a lot of things happening with us, you guys. So be on the lookout for that. We'll be just bombarding social media with stuff, but thank you so much. And we are excited to have you back as a guest at a later time.
I'd be happy to. And I send all my love and strength and prayers out to all of you that are going through this or are a survivor and dealing with the trauma, the emotions, the fears that do tend to stay with you and can surface at the most unexpected times. So my heart goes out to everyone out there.
Oh, thank you so much. Beautiful way to end the recording. Thanks, Diane. We'll talk
You're
to
so
you soon.
welcome. Sounds good.
Such a great time with Diane. Very informative and just so in awe of what she does. We have links and information where you can learn more about her and her amazing book and the COPE program. on our website at www.theboobreport.com/podcast, episode 15 in the show notes. A very big thank you to all of you for spending time with us today. Be sure to like and follow us, and definitely share the podcast with your friends. You can become an active listener and support this podcast by clicking on the podcast link on our website at theboobreport.com. Take care.